Hey, I'm Greg and welcome to my video. If you haven't seen my previous videos, it's essentially a series documenting my mental health and my journey to self-awareness. Today, I would like to start the discussion or pose the question, what would happen if you lost your personal identity? It'd be great if you could stick around and join. Please do like and subscribe, and more importantly, please do leave your comments below. Just trying to fit in, as I saw myself as being different. I was less worthy even. And I was so desperate just to be considered normal, I went as far as concocting or stretching the truth about my backstory. So, I spent much of my professional career creating identity and brands, discovering what makes a product, a service, or even a person unique, defining the story, finding out why it exists, finding a place for it in this world, and developing a voice so that I can communicate with a market who either want, need, or would simply benefit from this brand. Now, I've tried to stay very true to myself, working with only clients who want to be genuine and honest. So therefore, we're not overhyping or over-promising or simply claiming that something is black when we all know that it is white. And together with the client, we've built a life for the brands through community and followers, building trust and inspiring loyalty. Now, on the flip side of all of this, I've also worked with many brands that over time have lost their identity, and they either need an identity refresh or they even, in some cases, need a complete makeover. And we have to adapt and evolve to meet the needs of the market nowadays. And this kind of puts me back to the question that I proposed earlier before the intro. What happens when you lose your personal identity? When you have one of those days when you wake up in the morning and you don't recognize the reflection that you see in the mirror. So I kind of think that, and you may think that given everything I've just talked about my experience with brand and identity, that I would have an easy fix for this, right? Well, the truth is that this is exactly what's happening to me. I feel I've lost my identity, and it has me thinking self-identity is actually quite a funny thing. I've been thinking a lot about the way that we think about ourselves. And in my case, the story that I tell myself about who I am and how that has created my identity. And the truth is, I don't think until this last couple of days, this is something I've ever given the time of day of to think about or been conscious about at all. But I've realized that a lot this past year, I've been making the comment, I don't feel like I know who I am anymore. Now, yesterday morning, in fact, I was with my therapist and I was trying to just explain about my last week. It was a bit of a nightmare. I was just completely unmotivated and detached, and I just had this internal sadness that was inside me and hanging all around me. And I found myself saying something along the lines to her like, I feel like I'm grieving. I'm having to say goodbye to someone who I once was. Now, at this point, I found it very difficult to explain or describe the feelings I was feeling, as I've always associated loss with something much more tangible, or a thing, so to speak, or maybe even a loss of job or something. But let me explain a little bit more first. Over the course of my life, I've had many different personal personas. And I guess I like to think that this is something we all do. We may act or speak or do what we think is right to fit into the circumstances we find ourselves in that particular point in our lives. And I realized that in coping with my ghosts, I went beyond just trying to fit in, as I saw myself as being different. I was less worthy even. And I was so desperate just to be considered normal, I went as far as concocting or stretching the truth about my backstory. And all of this was just to avoid finding myself into a position one day where someone may ask me this difficult question like, why did you run away from home when you were 15? Now, for me, I guess, the story was created because I just wanted this level playing field. I didn't want to be perceived or treated as being any different. And inadvertently, this story has stuck with me, most of my adult life. And if the truth be told, I sometimes still catch myself telling it unconsciously. It kind of just like rolls off my tongue, and then I'm stuck, trying to backtrack. However, if work, it was different. I just had to do what others did, but better. And I knew that I was capable of doing anything through hard work. And I literally went from washing dishes in a restaurant to owning a digital marketing agency in the centre of London. I had a house in Covent Garden, I had a great relationship, we were travelling the world, and we were living amongst the top 5%. Now, all of this may sound very nice, but it got me thinking, at what cost? My personal identity, I believe, was completely shadowed by my professional persona. People liked and responded really well to this Gregg, and I had the confidence to walk into any boardroom and literally tell them what I saw that was going wrong and how I was going to help them fix it. And I used to leave these meetings sometimes and think, gosh, if only outside of work I had that confidence in myself. So no matter what kind of happened in life, I just threw myself into work and I carried forward. There was no looking back until last year, that is, when I had my burnout. And when I was told, and I know I've said this before, I should go off work immediately, everything literally came crashing down into a million pieces. I was like devastated. I had no idea what happened, why it happened, and simply who the hell I was anymore. For me, it appeared that no work equaled no identity, and I felt like it just been stripped away from me. It was the one thing, though, that had kept me going, had kept me safe. It was the one thing that I knew. And to confuse the matters more, my company doctor basically said, listen, mate, your ability to carry on life as you have just doesn't work. You need to find new ways. Now, my story gets a little bit more complicated here, so just bear with me another couple of minutes. 5 years previously, this grand life and empire I was building in London also came crashing down. And, sadly, I lost everything. But as I've done many times before, I guess rather than really facing the truth and processing it, accepting it and learning from it and moving on, I just did what I'd always known to do. And that was just to kind of say, yep, it happened, pick yourself up. I went and moved country and I just started all over again. And I've kind of come to realize, just in the last couple of days, that much of that baggage from that period is also still haunting me today. So it's just kind of like more ghost for the cupboard, Gregg. But you may wonder, well, hang on, why don't you just pick yourself up this time? Well, the truth is, I just can't. I'm physically and mentally exhausted after years of, this same cycle, and I just can't do this to myself again. I was recently diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and PTSD, and I've, forced to realize that, this is an opportunity to face these issues once and for all and start living a more balanced life. Now, this kind of brings me back to the whole thing about lost identity. What was I thinking about myself and telling myself that I now feel like I've lost, and why I'm having this feeling of grieving? Well, for starters, most definitely there's my professional identity. I've always been career hungry and I was driven, and I really missed some basics in life, and I just set such high expectations for myself to be the best, in this kind of perfectionist way. And I always went above and beyond. And since last year, since everything that's happened, I've really noticed that, these last few months, there's a big shift in what I see myself doing moving forward, and I guess it's kind of scary to say goodbye to that really confident Gregg. There's also that financial independence and that financial identity. My earnings in the past has afforded me luxuries such as business class travels and hotels and eating in good restaurants and the latest gadgets. And it's true, money may not buy happiness, but it can certainly fill some voids. And I guess nowadays, I'm having to live a very much leaner lifestyle. There's the outlook identity. I've always been forever the optimist. And when something went wrong, it was always kind of, no worries, Gregg will fix it. Nothing too big. There's always opportunity. You can have whatever you want. You just have to set your mind to it. Sounds something very much like what my parents probably said to us as children. but you get the picture. And I guess now I somewhat feel that the tinted or rose tinted glasses have been removed, and I'm just seeing the world in some very, very different colours. And I guess there's all of these other personas as well that I was talking about, these fit in personas. I've been examining all these pieces that have fallen down, and I'm trying to sort of build back up, brick by brick, as best as possible. Now, of course, there's lots of other things I've been thinking about that help us define our identity, such as nationality. Now, I'm not particularly a nationalist or patriotic to really any country. I kind of consider myself more a citizen of the world. There's gender and sexual orientation. Now, I'm gay, and that's obviously had a big influence on my identity. There's your physical and mental health. My physical health is great. It doesn't really impact my life in a negative way. I could get to the gym a little bit more often. Whereas I'm now, beginning to learn the impacts of my mental health. And that at times can be really, really crippling, particularly with panic attacks. Religion, I'm not a religious person, although it really has shaped my identity in somewhat a negative way. So I like to think more universal. I've spent much of my life, at least the last 25 years, behind this professional persona and not developing a more rounded, balanced personal persona. What do I love? What do I enjoy? What don't I like? What do I feel? And in such an attempt to be accepted as normal, I kind of just sat on the fence with everything to accommodate everyone, putting everyone and everything before me. So now I'm literally examining my every behavior and trying to say, yeah, this feels great, Gregg, or no, you've done that, it worked okay in the past, but that's not who you are anymore, moving forward. And, trying to find this true self, I question, is that possible? Or is it at least possible that I can find a self that I'm happy with more boundaries? Now, I should say that I know that everything that I've mentioned doesn't really have to completely just get thrown out. I just need to kind of work on the versions that are already there. And I guess, like my clients, I'm now on this journey to rediscover what makes me unique, to find my story, find my place in this world, and develop my voice, and find the right people in the community to adapt, evolve, and, become a better version of myself. Gregg 2.0, to be cliche. But anyway, what I'd really love is if you relate to any of this. I'd really appreciate hearing your experiences with loss and identity. Please do leave comments below. Please feel free to share this video with anyone who you think it may benefit in any way. And definitely please subscribe to my channel. In the meantime, I hope I've given you something to think about, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Cheers.